Hi everyone, welcome to our third webinar in our How to Connect series. This one is on sensationalism and fake news. My name is Misty Wilson-Mehrtens. I am the Social Sciences Department Chair. I just want to remind you guys that we have a bunch of other webinars coming up, so check the schedule. Remember that those are going to be happening. But today I am being joined by
me. My name is Allegra Hanna. I am an English teacher at TCC Connect. I'm also the department chair for English and Humanities. And as your screen shows, I'm going to learn how to speak before the end of this today. I definitely pay attention to the news, listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm trying to quit Twitter, but we'll see how that goes. If you have questions during the broadcast, type them into the chat box. We'll be able to see those.
And in the description of the video, guys, there's a link for a quiz we're going to be using later. So just make sure you grab that and put it in a second tab and are ready to go. All right, so Allegra, tell us.
Sound okay?
What is fake news?
Fake news is absolutely untrue hoax, falsifications. So that's things that people make up for either entertainment purposes or to trick people or to manipulate the situation.
Okay, and clickbait?
Clickbait is mostly true or all the way true, but it is written in a way that misleads people into thinking it's a juicier story than it is. It's basically what it sounds like. They're baiting you to click on something. So they give you dramatic headlines so that you click on it, read the story, and they get money and ad money based on how many people click on their links.
And this one's been in the news a lot in the last week. But what's an opinion or a commentary?
So opinion pieces are separate from the news, and they are written to express the kinds of opinions that citizens are having. And so newspapers publish them, but they're different than the news, and they're valid, but
so that's
separate.
All different from real, true, authentic journalism.
Absolutely. So authentic journalism is something that you might read in a newspaper, like the Star-Telegram in Fort Worth or the Dallas Morning News in Dallas. Those are professionally trained journalists who are responsible to the truth and report their stories to editors. They have professional fact-checking. And so that is where we want to get our information about what's going on in our communities in the world.
So if that's real, true journalism, what is this phase that we keep hearing all the time? What is fake news?
Fake news, again, it's deliberately wrong information, misleading you on purpose. So running up to the 2016 election, there was a lot of fake news that tried to convince people that politicians were even worse than they really were, or trying to mislead people against voting or to vote for the wrong people. They're also motivated by money, so trying to get people to become really freaked out and afraid of something and to spend money on a cure for something they don't need. They try to look like legitimate news sources. In fact, most fake news sites try to mimic the look of an actual news source.
And so with fake news, we have a bunch of different types or kinds of fake news, right?
We do. So here's an example. And so this is a fake news headline. This isn't an exaggeration. It's absolutely 100% untrue. And that's this headline that says, CDC doctor says disastrous flu shot is causing a deadly flu outbreak. And you see, or you will see, because we guess we have a delay.
We have about a minute lag.
Okay. So the flu shot is not a disaster. The CDC doctor never said it, and the flu shot wasn't causing a deadly flu outbreak.
So this whole thing is just completely 100% false.
False. Completely untrue.
So it's fake in the sense that it's just completely not real.
Not real at all.
Okay. So our next type is?
This is also completely not real at all, but this is made to look like it came from a news source. And so we have a lot of political fake news, as you might imagine. And so this is made to look like an ABC news page. I'm so sorry for the delay. Maybe I'm going to wait. And
you're fine. It won't catch up. It'll always have a delay.
Wonderful.
This is Allegra's first broadcast, if y'all can't tell.
I didn't realize
I'm a veteran. I have 3.
And I guess Austin Haynes is going to write comments that are summarizing things I'm saying, which is great for those of you who are reading along. So anyway, this is made to look like an ABC News page. You see, it kind of looks like the ABC News logo. It kind of looks like it might be a web page that a news site is, but it's fake. And this one is a very problematic fake news article, of course, because it was printed on December 19th, which was a couple weeks after Election Day. And it was telling people that we were all going to get to revote in December, which, aside from being just not true, is super unconstitutional. So,
well, and this one's kind of tricky too, because if I just saw a screenshot of this and it says ABC News at the top, I could be very easily misled, right?
Yeah. So we have to be very careful about the kinds of things that we read. And so, as I was explaining to Misty earlier, if you get a link on Twitter or an email to a news source and you click it and you pull it up, it might look like that ABC News page, and so you might think it's valid. It's better to just Google ABC News or CNN or New York Times or whoever you want to get your actual news from. It's better to Google that news source and go to their webpage and navigate that way. And that way you know that you're looking at an authentic news page. What you have now is another example of a fake news story, and there's a lot of these, and so it's called junk science. These are fake. Again, fake. It's not exaggeration. It's just made up. Gardasil is a vaccine for HPV, which is a sexually transmitted disease and a virus that can cause cancer. So obviously the vaccine is important, especially for young people. This headline insinuates that the vaccine is deadly and is being pushed on millions of people, and neither of those statements is true. Of course, some people have allergic reactions, but that's very rare. And no doctor would ever call it a deadly vaccine. No one is trying to expose it. And honestly, if you read this headline, it looks like a news page.
So you just said something right there that I think is really important. You said headline.
Yeah.
So how many people do you think are taking the time to slow down and actually read the article? Or am I just seeing this headline and I'm sharing it on Facebook?
Yeah. And so that's a huge problem. And, even when I have conversations with my own husband, I'll say, oh, did you hear this crazy thing? And he'll be like, no, I didn't hear that. Tell me more about it. And I'm like, I don't know any more about it. I just,
the headline.
And so then I've just repeated it. So no, it's definitely a problem, even with people like myself. You're absolutely right.
All right. So how do I avoid falling for that? How do I know what's good news?
So it doesn't have to be good news. No, I'm just kidding. So how do you know if it's real news?
How do I know real bad news?
Yeah. So Google the headline. So if you read something that's crazy, it could be true because, as you know, crazy things happen every day. So Google the headline. If you can find the same information 2 or 3 other places, if you do a Google news search and 30 news sites come up with the same kind of headline, then yeah, it's probably true. Click on one of the stories and read it, though, because again, they could be exaggerating. There are fact-checking services like Snopes. There's another one we're going to talk about later called PolitiFact. Just go to the website, type in a couple keywords, and if the story pops up as, something that's being retweeted and a lie, then you know.
Because these things tend to be viral, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So viral. They come in huge waves. So usually if you're seeing something, there's a fact check somewhere about it.
Yeah, you're not the only one who's reading the fake news. If you're not sure, ask your instructors. Send a news article to me or to one of your instructors and say, hey, is this real? Or a librarian. Both your instructors and librarians are literally professionally trained in how to evaluate sources of information. And so librarians even more so than your instructors. So they can help you dig into something and make sure that it's being reported accurately. If a website has lots of ads or pop-ups, if it looks junky, it is junk. So if you go to, every website is going to have some kind of ads, but lots of pop-ups and lots of weird, your face is melting off kind of ads. You've seen those?
Yeah.
Those are all fake, or at least CLICKBAIT, less reliable. So again, don't rely on things that are linked to you, but navigate tune news through the homepage of the news organization. Consult an actual newspaper. You don't have to consult.
Like the paper one? You want me to go get a paper newspaper? I don't even know where to do that.
I don't know where to do it either, except in the airport. Now, or, the newspaper's website, but in, something that is a legitimate print news organization, or NPR, which is, a public news service, a source where reporters submit articles to an editor and everyone is professionally responsible for printing the truth and correcting mistakes. Sometimes professional journalists do make mistakes, and that's okay, but they retract their mistakes. And the other thing you can do is the same thing that journalists are trained to do, which is just get a second source and compare the information. That's one thing I really like to do, is look at two things, or look at the same story on two different sites and see how two different sources are reporting the same information.
Well, because you can have a story that has two very different slants on it, but both reporting facts.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of our students here is saying that people, this happens a lot, repost something like 3 years later. And so if you just look at it on Facebook, you read the headline and it looks like it just happened. And then, everybody gets mad when you point. Trust me, I understand the pain of being the person to point out when someone is wrong.
Have you ever not been that person?
No, I'm always that person. Just like restaurants don't like it when I tell them that their signs are grammatically incorrect, but I'm still going to do it.
So English teachers have lots of friends. Is what I hear you say.
We have no friends. But it looks like our students who are taking part in the chat, which definitely do that, it looks like they are pretty responsible readers because they are pointing out to their friends that something isn't real. So, don't get your news from Facebook. I think we all learned that. Yes, Austin Snopes is a reliable vetting source. It's not the only, it's maybe not the place everybody likes to go, but they are professionally trained in vetting news. But if it's a political story, there's a link actually in the video description to PolitiFact. So if you want to check any political stories, they have a truthometer. And so they tell you how true something is, because there are grades of truth, right?
So how big of a problem overall is fake news?
Fake news, when I say fake news, I mean totally untrue, made up, hoax, lies, were a huge problem in 2015 and 2016. And that's because it snuck up on us. Nobody was expecting it. Nobody knew it was going to happen. And so we didn't know to be on the lookout for it. We know now, so it's not as big of a danger. And as you can see, we're becoming very savvy to Googling it, checking it on Snopes. Fewer people use Facebook for news, and fewer people use Facebook in general. And because now there are trickier, more insidious ways to mislead people. So that's not the biggest danger anymore.
So it's not that we don't have a problem now, it's that the problem has shifted.
The problem has shifted to half-truth and misrepresentation of information. So one example is things that you read on Twitter. So we have lots of Twitter detectives, and I'm sure that you guys are going to chime in the comments in just a minute if you're a Twitter detective. Like I said, I'm trying to quit Twitter, but I'm unsuccessful. I have 3 Twitter accounts. I use all of them every day. So we have Twitter detectives. And so this is a very recent, very tragic, very awful news story that happened in Dallas.
So local. It's a local story.
This young man was tragically killed by a person whom he did not know. But Twitter detectives, very quick on the scene, found this picture and retweeted it thousands upon thousands of times, insinuating that these two people did know each other. And it's fake. This is not the person that people are saying that it is. And I've circled in green here that you can see retweeted just this particular tweet, retweeted over 7,000 times, liked over 8,000 times, with almost 200 comments. So it says, I need to know if it's true, but it's repeated 7,000 times. And as you can see, there's another one behind it. So this is a theory that proliferated on Twitter over the weekend, and it wasn't true. And if you Google it, and in fact, in the links for the video, I've posted a link to the Dallas Morning News story, just so you can confirm that this is not true, that those two people did not know each other.
Because we shouldn't take your word for it. We should go find a second source.
You should go find a second source. You should go find a legitimate news source, and you can verify that this is a hoax. So fake news, was a problem, but now we have fake detective work. Now,
okay, Austin has a question here, and I want to take a time out and read it.
Yeah.
But what if I like what I read? Can't I just believe it and there not be anything bad that comes from that?
we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I'm happy that you like what you read, but if what you're reading isn't true, or if what you're reading doesn't challenge your beliefs, then you're not doing any critical thinking, and it's going to make you stupider and everybody around you as a result. So I like to read stories that confirm my own beliefs and my own political leanings too. It's just problematic to not challenge your own thinking. And you don't have to be persuaded, but you do have to make sure that you have the information. And you guys are absolutely right. Fake news is harmful to the people that it's about. And the girl in this picture, who is not the perpetrator of the crime but was misidentified as such, is probably having a very bad week. And as another one of our students said, everybody wants to be relevant, so they cook something up. And that is a great point that one of our students just made. People are retweeting this because they want to be relevant.
Involved,
they want to be part of the story. They want to they want to be in it. Just like when you were in high school, everybody wanted to have the tea, have the gossip. So, I know I said
you speak this language I don't even understand.
I know. I used, it's from when I taught high school. So, next question, Misty.
So we've got Twitter. The other website, I guess we're going to call that's been really challenging is YouTube. And I say that knowing that we are broadcasting right now on YouTube.
YouTube is home to great information.
Like this.
And you know what? This is a college sanctioned and being broadcast by two people professionally trained in the field. And we are citing our sources, so you can trust the information we're providing to you. But this is the YouTube page of someone who believes the earth is flat. And as you can see, I circled for you in green. These videos have thousands, tens of thousands of views. And now, obviously, some people are viewing them to make fun of them. But this false information is being spread like wildfire. How gravity works on flat Earth, how sunsets work on flat Earth, how seasons work on flat Earth, how Neil deGrasse Tyson is a liar and an idiot. Of course, he's a world-renowned astrophysicist, and the person who made this page thinks the Earth is flat. So we have to be very careful, because you might see a YouTube channel that has thousands of subscribers and think thousands of people can't be wrong, but supporters isn't equal to validity in any way. Some of the stupidest people on earth have the most Twitter followers, and you all know who I am talking about.
So this is easy because the earth is not flat. We all know that. This is the easy one. Mm-hmm. But it can get a little more challenging than this, right? Especially when there's a lot of nuance or detail, or you're learning about a subject you don't really know about.
It's easy to say the earth's not flat and to say that's not true. But there are, gray shades of gray, absolutely. So how do you combat conspiracy theories, retweeters, YouTube, I don't want to call them idiots, people who, have these crazy videos that aren't true, people who are posting and reposting things that aren't accurate? So what do you do about them? Well, the first thing you do is you look for the same information on a legit news site. Anything that's big, if we have uncovered the conspiracy, the worldwide conspiracy of the shape of the earth, that's going to be in the news. And even if we have good Twitter detectives who find things out before they hit the news, which happens sometimes.
Especially in war-torn countries.
Yeah, in war-torn countries, if there are people live on the scene downtown when a protest is happening, those people are going to have the information before the news outlets do. But the news outlets are going to verify information for us and then publish it. So wait for something to be published by a legit source. Listen to the expert, right? YouTubers don't have more credibility than nationally known scientists, professors, or published researchers. So if you have to choose between the guy on YouTube who has the cool graphics and the people who teach at MIT and Stanford, it shouldn't be a tough decision. Right? Or TCC. Just as good. Again, ask your instructors, librarians, or other experts in the field. Sometimes it can be very tricky, and sometimes it takes me 5 or 10 minutes to sort out whether something's accurate or not. So it's not on you if it's hard to figure out. Definitely ask for help, but look it up somewhere else. Twitter has this echo effect problem that you're probably all familiar with, that things become viral, right? And they snowball. And so then it actually becomes hard to find real information once the lies take off. Real news agencies will have the blue check mark. So the blue check mark doesn't always mean this person is the best. But if it's a news agency with a blue check mark, that's something that's reliable. And that's specific to Twitter, of course. My biggest piece of advice to you, though, is not to read the comments.
Like if I'm reading a news story?
On anything, literally anywhere.
Okay. Why?
Because that's where the crazy people live, is the comments. Not our comments here. These are good comments. But YouTube video comments, Twitter comments. I mean, the comments are where conspiracy theories kind of get started.
So by avoiding the comments, you just don't get dragged down to that level, basically.
Right. And comments are trolls. Comments are bots. You can get into a conversation and then realize 20 minutes later that the person you're fighting with on Twitter isn't even a human being. It's, it's a bot designed to spread misinformation.
Well, and then the other thing is, like, how many minds are you going to change on a YouTube comment page? You're not really going to persuade people to your point of view.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's not where effective conversations happen. That's a great point. Carmen just said, Google's my best friend because if TMZ is not reporting on it, it isn't true. TMZ verifies their sources. TMZ's, they're not reporting on the most important news of the day most of the time. But they are accurate in their reporting. I mean, they are double checking their sources and they're getting things on tape. So don't be ashamed of watching TMZ. Sometimes I might watch it. I'm not going to tell you.
All right. So what exactly is clickbait? Because that's a term I hear a lot.
It is a term you hear a lot, and it's everywhere. And, even credible news sources can be guilty of being a little clickbaity, because clickbait isn't a lie. Clickbait is kind of a manipulation. It's a sales tactic. It's marketing, right? So the example I have on the screen is this tweet from some celebrity reporting thing. And it says, "You'll never believe which two stars got in a fight on the red carpet last night. Click to find out who they were fighting over." And so then we have this picture of two people walking on a red carpet. Everybody wants to click on this link because we want to find out, who are these people? Who got in a fight? Who are they fighting over, right? So it's very intriguing. And
so if I click on that, though, somebody gets money somewhere.
Somebody gets money. And it's not you or me. Somebody else gets money for all of the clicks. So, there's no harm in you clicking it to find out, but you might get stuck going down a rabbit hole. The other problem is, because they are trying to sensationalize the information, they can end up being very misleading. And again, if a person just reads the sensationalized, clickbaity, over-dramatic headlines, they're not going to get accurate information, and so they're going to walk away from the situation with an inaccurate understanding of what's going on. So Tara's right. Clickbait's an exaggeration of something totally unrelated.
I think Austin's giving us examples of clickbait.
Yeah, Austin is giving us examples of clickbait. Marianne from Gilligan's Island is unbelievably beautiful, even at the age of 80. Click here to see photos of her now. Stan Lee is giving away the end of the fourth Avengers movie. Click here now. So here's an example on your screen, though, of, and I have an example of both sides because this isn't a politically motivated. So you can just tell by the language and by who's posting it that this information is clickbait. So one of these pieces is an opinion piece. Here's why I will never call Donald Trump. I think the end of that is my president. But, who posted it's for progressives. We've got inflammatory language like attack and tyrant. And so it's inflammatory. It's very overdramatic. And the same with the other one. I couldn't even find out what military action this tweet was even in reference to. So obviously it wasn't devastating. It wasn't sabotage. It wasn't as drastic as it's being made out to be. So these are two examples of clickbait. So these are things that happened or were reported or relevant to something, but clicking on them, God, you guys have the most amazing comments right now. And now you're going to get into an Avengers conversation. So anyway, Misty had a point about the pictures also.
So one of the ways that you would know that this is not necessarily a legitimate news source, or at least cause you to second guess it, is their use of images. If it's ABC News, Fox News, MSNBC News, they're going to use professional pictures. And look at this picture of Trump. That picture is designed to make him look a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with the picture of Obama.
Yeah.
That picture is designed to trigger an emotion in you. It's not just him against a background smiling,
Yeah.
or it's not him signing something at his desk. These are very, very, very specific images used for a specific purpose.
Absolutely. And you have to, and this was just pointed out by Michelle in our comments, you have to think about the purpose of the article. Is it being presented to you to persuade you in a subjective and biased way? Or is it being presented to you to inform you? And if it's something that's designed to persuade you, it's going to have all this inflammatory language. And especially when we get into run-ups to elections and we have, special interest groups and political ads and political campaigns posting all kinds of sometimes wrong, incorrect information, but also sometimes just misleading or inflammatory information. And so the biggest problem with political clickbait is that it's reinforcing what you believe, and it is making things more or over dramatic. And one of our students just commented about people calling legitimate news fake. And we are, I promise, going to talk about that as a part of our presentation. But so here's some more examples of political clickbait that's just designed to kind of reinforce people's pre-existing notions, right?
So if you click on this and you already believe what they're going to tell you, you get lost in that echo chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are not stories that are going to challenge you. These are not stories that are going to inspire critical thinking. These are not stories that are going to make you any smarter.
But they're going to make me feel good about my own beliefs.
That's correct, Leah. Political ads are not 100% accurate because they're not providing you both sides of information. Thanks for listening, by the way. Leah's one of our history professors. So, yeah, these articles are going to make you feel good because they're going to say, see, I told you such and such was awful. But they're not going to make you any more aware of what's happening in the world. And, of course, that is the point of the news. So the big question is, and
who cares, Allegra?
Yeah. And Austin asked this earlier, right? Like, why should I care if reading these fake news stories or reading these clickbait articles is making me feel good, or watching the political campaign for my favorite politician, watching them give a speech? All those things make me feel good. So why should I care about reading things that are unbiased and objective? Well, the first reason is the more times you hear something, the more likely you are to believe it. And so if you keep hearing misinformation, eventually it kind of starts to seep in.
Even if it's not intentional.
Even if it's not intentional. And your bias is created subconsciously. So if you see enough pictures of people curated to make them look bad, you start to think of them as being angry or being sad. If you see enough political campaigns, advertising, you start to develop a bias subconsciously. The news and the information you take in influences who you vote for. You should all be voting if you can. What you buy, where you live, who you associate with, what you major in, who becomes a public official, who's writing legislation, who hires and fires the district attorney and police in your town. All of those decisions are made by voters or impacted by voters, and we are impacted by the information that we take in. So in little ways, it adds up to a very big impact. Creating an echo chamber means that you are reinforcing things, but you are not thinking critically. And I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Idiocracy, but I promise you it's funny, but it's horrifying. And if you want to devolve from democracy into idiocracy, the number one way to do it is to stop paying attention and to stop thinking about the things you see and hear.
So we've gone over a lot of the places that I shouldn't get my news from and how I should think critically about it. But where can I go to get good news? Or not good news, but valid news.
So the library is where you can get valid information. Now, of course, the library is not always where you're going to get the most recent information, but it's where you get valid information and can do fact checking. Your textbooks, for the most part, are accurate. University websites and things presented by universities and colleges like this. And news sites, verified news sites, are where you get accurate news. And when I say verified, I mean related to journalistic principles. And even if you don't want to read the print edition, we're talking about news organizations that have a print edition. So
the Washington Post,
Yep.
the New York Times.
Yes.
Those are the big
Wall Street Journal, sure.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
All right. So show us an example of where I can go that's convenient, because we're all at TCC, right?
We are all associated with TCC, or we've somehow stumbled across this wonderful presentation randomly. So you can look up information in the TCC library, and you can also ask a TCC librarian for help making sure that a news piece that you are reading is accurate. And so you can access librarians by phone, you can access librarians by email, you can access librarians on the 5 other campuses at TCC, and you can consult. Again, they are information professionals, and they can help you discern whether a piece of information is accurate.
And every college will have this.
Every college, every university has resources and librarians ready to help you understand and interpret the information that's in front of you.
And they're very
Absolutely.
excited when you actually go into the library.
They are just literally sitting there waiting for you to do it. My sister's a university librarian.
So let's say I'm working on a paper or I'm writing an opinion piece and I found the source and I'm just really iffy and I don't know if it's a good source or not. What do I do?
So if you want to try and evaluate it, so there's something called a crap test, believe it or not. So just remember, you're trying to decide whether it's crap or not.
This is why English teachers have no friends, by the way.
Yeah, I know. So first question, is it current? And again, as some of our students have pointed out, news stories from 5 years ago being reposted as though they just happened recently can be a problem. Our president's political statements from the 90s are not relevant to today.
But if I'm writing about a historical figure, it may not matter as much.
Right. The life and times of Andrew Jackson haven't changed since his death, I imagine.
Well, we would disagree with that, but the facts of his life haven't
The
changed.
facts of his life, yes, unless there's a ghost situation. You have to ask if the information is relevant or if it's off topic and what the audience is. So again, is it written for a public audience? Is it written for professional scholars? Is it appropriate for what I'm writing about? And it depends on what you're researching for. Authoritative is a question about who published the information. And again, I know that we all have our own opinions about which news channel is fair and not biased. But I'm not really talking about TV cable news, because cable news is kind of the opinion page of the TV news world. But if we're talking about print publications, authoritative news publications have print copies. Is someone being funny in the comments?
Austin.
Okay.
So if I'm looking for an article again about a history thing, I should go to a peer-reviewed website.
Yes.
But if I'm maybe looking for a poli-sci piece where I need something that's happening right now, I could go to a newspaper. And those are both acceptable, authoritative sources.
Absolutely.
They're just different.
They're different.
Okay.
And again, who's the organization? So Entertainment Weekly has a print publication, and so they are subject to journalistic standards, but what they're writing about is probably not politically related. You have to ask if it's accurate, so you have to do some of your own fact checking. Can you find the same or similar information in another place? And what's its purpose? And that's something else our students pointed out earlier. If this is clear, if this is clearly biased, if this is clearly written to persuade, if this is a piece of advertising, if it's been a paid placement, then it's less accurate than if it's printed in order to inform the public, which is the purpose of all news. All good news, anyway.
All right, so this brings us to the point that you were saying earlier is probably one of the most critical, which is when we call real news fake news.
That is what I would say the biggest problem we have now relating to fake news. Fake news itself was a huge problem 2 years ago. The big problem now is calling real news fake news. So I've listed here some examples of things that are real news organizations. The New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR, the Los Angeles Times, And locally, Dallas Morning News and Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Those are real, authentic, accurate news organizations printing news responsibly. They are responsible to their editors, to the public, to the truth. They do fact-checking. They verify their sources. Sometimes they print things with anonymous sources, but that doesn't mean they don't have real sources. So calling real news fake news and discrediting the manner that we get our information as citizens is the biggest problem we have leading up to the 2018 election, in my personal opinion.
So just because I don't like it doesn't make it fake.
That is correct.
Okay.
There is something in the newspaper today that I don't like. I don't know what it is, but it's in there. But that doesn't mean that it's not true.
And now, these are not organizations that can't sometimes make a mistake. So if they did make a mistake, what would they do that still gives them legitimacy?
So they would print a retraction, which means they would follow it the next day by saying, it can be something as minor as a spelling error, or it can be something as major as the wrong person, the wrong date, the wrong facts and the information. And so they would print a retraction, and if they printed an error on the front page, they'd print a retraction on the front page. And so they would say, we made a mistake.
So it's of equal weight to the story.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they are responsible to the truth. Fake news sites, clickbait sites, people who retweet things on Twitter, those people are not responsible for telling the truth. They have no accountability in any way. And so while I know that it's more exciting, juicier to get news in other places, we can't be sure that their information is accurate.
All right, so that leads us to our interactive part, right?
Yes. So you gotta make sure that you can differentiate between the three kinds of claims that you might read.
So in a minute, we're going to ask you guys to test your skills. But these are the tools you're going to need to do that.
So we have our very own troll. So one kind of claim you're going to read is an arguable, supportable claim that is backed up with information and that both sides have merit. So those are questions like, should we raise the minimum wage? Should we build a new stadium? Should we legalize marijuana? Should we change sentencing laws? If we're reading a responsibly reported piece of journalism, both sides will be represented in the article. So if it's a story on raising the minimum wage, they will have research and quotes from people who want to raise it and from people who don't want to raise it. That's responsible journalism. Another kind of claim you're going to see is an opinion claim, and that's wholly separate from the news arm of the organization. Every newspaper has an opinion section, and that is there to reflect the current opinions of everyday citizens, but it's different than the news.
And this is just one of those times where we have great timing because, again, opinion pages have been in the news quite a bit in the last 5 or 6 days.
Yes.
So we should acknowledge that when we say that they're wholly separate, they mean wholly separate, right?
Yes.
So what happens at the news desk has no bearing on what happens at the opinion page.
They are literally two different desks and two different operations. They're just printed and put together in the same newspaper. Both are valid for different reasons. So opinions are things that you are absolutely allowed to believe. We all have opinions on all of these topics, but you can't support them with facts and research, or they are overly biased and subjective. So a sentence like, murderers deserve the death penalty, is a valid opinion for a person to have, but it's not something that you could argue.
So I'm going to ask you guys in the comment section to step away from the keyboard for a moment, because take a deep breath. This is about political literacy. It is not about politics. This is about learning how to read a source. We're getting there, which we know you have opinions and you're passionate, and we love that. But that's not exactly what we're doing today.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm. All right, so last kind of claim.
I'm just reading. Okay. So we have arguable, supportable claims. And again, in journalism, you're going to get both sides of the issue. Assertions, opinions, Those are things that you're going to hear on opinion page. Those are things you're going to read in less responsibly reported stories. And then you just have things that are either right or wrong. So I'm here to tell you the earth is round. If a newspaper is
That's the takeaway from today.
If the newspaper is going to report on the shape of the earth, we do not need both sides of that issue because one of them is wrong. There are things that are absolutely true and absolutely not true. And one of those things is that the earth is round. I tried to find something that would be less contentious. So the earth's round. If you don't agree, I apologize. You are allowed to disagree all day. You can go home and disagree. You can talk about me and how dumb I am for thinking the earth is round, but it doesn't make what I'm saying less true. And it doesn't make newspapers reporting it less accurate.
All right. So do you think they're ready to try this?
Yes. Okay.
So open that second tab. Paste the link in that we gave you in the description box if you need it again.
It's the Pew Research link.
So you guys are going to be given a series of statements, and then you're going to be asked to evaluate them. How many statements are there? There's like 15, I think.
There are 10 statements, and you're just going to say this is a fact, this is an opinion. So these are the statements that you're going to look at in case you don't want to open the second tab or you
are having trouble with
it. So these are the 10 statements, and you're going to be asked to answer whether each is a fact or an opinion on the Pew site. The first is immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally have some rights under the Constitution. Healthcare costs per person in the U.S. are the highest in the developed world. Thank you, Leah. The government is almost always wasteful and inefficient. Again, we're deciding whether we think that's a factual statement or opinion statement. Increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour is essential for the health of the U.S. economy. ISIS lost a significant portion of its territory in Iraq and Syria in 2017. Abortion should be legal in most cases. President Barack Obama was born in the United States. Democracy is the greatest form of government. Spending on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid make up the largest portion of the U.S. federal budget. Immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally are a very big problem for the country today. So the question is not whether you like them or whether you agree with them. The question is whether they're opinions or facts. And in fact, there's probably something on the screen that you agree with, and there's probably something on the screen that you disagree with. And that doesn't change the fact that it's either true, not true, or an opinion.
So to read critically, we have to set aside our biases.
Yes.
And just try to determine
that is correct.
What this is.
That's correct. So healthcare costs per person in the U.S. are highest in the developed world. That's a factual statement. The most interesting part of what you're going to see in these results is that I don't know if I can I point?
I don't think we can point.
You can't point. Okay. So what you're going to see when you see the results is that 76% of the people got it right. Of the people who don't trust the news, only 68% got it right. And that's going to be true for most of these. And what that tells you is that people who don't trust national news organizations are less informed and less able to discern fact from opinion. So people who don't trust national news statistically are less informed, less aware of what's going on, and less able to think critically. So again, of the people who answered this question about President Barack Obama, he's born in the United States. Is that a factual statement or an opinion statement? 77% of people who answered this survey said, got it correct. It's a factual statement. It's true. But only 62% of people who don't trust the news got it right, which means they're statistically less likely to understand, know, and be able to interpret what they read and see.
So this is a skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
That is absolutely true. And you see this trend continue. Immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally have some rights under the Constitution. Only 54% of us got it right. And again, this isn't a question of whether you like it or don't like it, agree with it, don't agree with it. It's just, it is, right? So people who did trust the news were 70% likely to get it, and people who didn't were 42% likely to get it right. And so reading the news, analyzing the news, thinking critically about all of the things that you read is making these people smarter, more aware of what's going on, and more able to understand what they read. And the pattern continues to repeat.
And some of these are tricky because ISIS lost a significant portion of territory. Well, what is significant?
Right.
And so you can get kind of in the weeds reading some of these. And if you got some wrong, please don't take it the wrong way.
I definitely got some wrong the first time I did it. And I missed this question because I thought, well, significant makes it an opinion. Significant makes it a little arguable, but I mean, the facts are there to support that argument that it lost a significant portion. So again, all of these, you can see all of the trends on the screen. Democracy is the greatest form of government. Now, that's not a question of whether you agree, but hopefully you can identify that as an opinion, right? Increasing the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour is essential for the health of the U.S. economy. That's an opinion statement, right? A lot of people agree or don't agree, but everybody can identify it as an opinion, hopefully. So I'm just showing you the right answers as we go through them. Immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally are a very big problem for the country today. It's an opinion statement.
So anytime you see something like should, very big, those are all going to be clues to you that is an expressed opinion because facts can't be shoulds.
Right. Facts can't be very bigs, right? And really the word is very big problem. Well, what do you mean? Right? So that's something that's too subjective to be a factual statement or even a supportable argument. Leah's pointing out to us that politicians are inherently biased, and of course they are. So thank you for reminding us of that, Leah.
Well, it should be not just presidents and politicians. Every person has inherent bias.
Everybody has bias. And so that's why we're providing our sources to you so that you can check what we're saying. And as Leah's pointing out in the comments, we should fact check anything that a politician says and just see, not just how much truth, but also what's being left out. So even if you say something that's true, you might not be reporting the whole story. And that's another reason that responsible journalism is important, because they're obligated to report both sides of the story.
All right. So the best defense that we have against fake news is
just closing our eyes and ignoring the world around us.
Works 100% of the time.
I'm just kidding, everyone. I'm just kidding. So your best defense against fake news and our best defense against becoming an idiocracy, for that matter, is number one, to be informed. So read about what's going on in the world. Think about what you're reading. Ask questions. But also, as you guys are pointing out in the comments, practice healthy skepticism. Don't believe everything you hear, read, see, just because you hear it or see it. And just because someone shouts it in a crowd in front of 1,000 people doesn't make it more true. And just because it's reported by a news organization you don't really like doesn't make it not true. So thinking about what you're reading critically is absolutely essential. Third point here is don't debate facts. If something is true or not true, regardless of how much you like it or want it to be true, don't debate the facts.
So we can debate the outcome of facts. We can debate how we feel about the facts. We can debate what the facts have to do with the issue at hand, but we cannot debate the facts because they just are.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so somebody just brought up in the comments, Alex Jones, who's been banned from Facebook and Twitter, so no one's really listening to him anymore. But For example, right? He reported that actual things that happened didn't happen, right? School shootings that were on the news that absolutely happened. He said those were hoaxes. Those didn't happen. And that's, that's harmful if we are not healthily skeptical of what he's saying. If we don't look it up somewhere else, if we don't verify it with, sources that have to be accurate.
I think your next point on here is incredibly critical.
Which one?
Listen to both sides.
But, and this is what some people were talking about in the comments. We don't want to listen to both sides. We don't want to hear what people who disagree with us want to say. But that is the only way that you get any smarter, is if you get new information, if you ask questions. Absolutely, if you're on Twitter, you're going to follow all the people who you want to vote for, but you should follow the people you're not going to vote for too. Number one, you should be aware of what they're saying and doing and thinking, but also they might have the things that make you think. Listening does not mean that you have to agree with them, right? Listening means that you think about what they're saying. You can say, I disagree. You can say, I'm going to look it up. You can say, I'm going to verify it for myself. As Lee is pointing out to us, especially if they're politicians, we have to fact check them because they have agendas that they are pushing.
And then the last thing that you can do is just become a constant reader.
Yes, read the news. And, if the Washington Post is challenging to read, it's challenging for lots of people to read. It's challenging for me to read sometimes, right? Then read the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Find a news source that is easy for you to access, that you can check, and read it. It's not very expensive to subscribe to it, but you can, read the news by logging into the TCC library. We have news subscriptions. You can walk into the library. We have newspapers if you want to touch paper. I know how old school, but reading the news is very important because, again, if I just hold on to all the things that I believe, I can be real happy about it, but I could be wrong. Information changes, and I'm not getting any smarter if I'm not exposing myself to new pieces of information.
Well, and if you want to know anything about what's happening locally, you need to be reading those local papers as well.
Absolutely. And as we're going to talk about, and Misty's going to tell you in a future webinar, we're going to talk about local elections and why local issues are just as important as the ones that get all the news. Yes, to answer your question, yellow journalism is sensationalized journalism. So that's different than fake news. But yellow journalism is
exaggerated. It's
tabloid
not
journalism.
Lying,
it's
tabloid stretching the truth a little bit.
Yeah, the papers have the facts, and that's absolutely true. And again, on the rare occasions they make mistakes, they are responsible for correcting them.
All right. So with all of these webinars, we're ending it this way, and we are asking for you guys to make your voices heard. So if you want to get registered to vote, you have until October 9th at votetexas.gov. You will have to print it out, and you need to mail it in. So I know that some of you want to register online. I get it. We just can't do it. We're not there yet. And then the next thing you can do is actually, after you get registered, go vote.
That's correct. So you have to print your voter registration and mail it back, and you will get a voter registration card in the mail. I believe it's blue and white right now. It's a little postcard you get in the mail that tells you your precinct number and your name. And so once you get that back, you know for a fact that you're registered to vote. If you have questions about voter registration, you should email Misty. She's a deputy voter registrar
for Tarrant
County. So she can answer questions about registering to vote. We're not telling you who to vote for, but we are telling you to become informed about what's going on and to actually go vote. Tell them, Misty.
So the TCC student population voting percentage in the last midterm elections that we had was about 14%. And I think we can do better than that this time. So we're hoping you guys take advantage of this. If you're going to vote, the best possible time to do it is early voting. It's October 22nd through November 2nd. If you early vote, you will usually get in and out of there very quickly, and it will save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration if you're voting on election day.
Yeah.
And if you're voting on election day, you actually do have to go to your precinct. So please remember that. If you want to come vote with us, we're going to do an exercise your right to vote on November 1st and 2nd. So you can come up here and meet some of your TCC Connect faculty members and walk with us about a block and a half down the road to go vote. And then if you want to wait until Election Day, it's November 6th.
And then you can watch or read the news on November 6th and 7th to become informed about who was elected and who wasn't and what their policy beliefs are.
Well, hopefully you're looking at that before you vote.
So in the not comments, video description, you have some links. There's a link there to PolitiFact, which is where you can check to see how truthful politicians are being. There's a link to that Dallas Morning News story. There's a link to the Pew Research, and Misty's going to tell you about verifying your attendance.
So for those of you that attended this live, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to refresh this webpage, and I will put the link for you to go to fill out the survey to get credit for attending this webinar live. That link will be up until tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So if you're watching it live or you're watching it before September 13th at 7 p.m., click that link that's going to be in the comments description. That's how you're going to get credit. If you are watching this after September 13th at 7 p.m., ask your professor how you're going to get credit for attending. In my class, you'll be writing a small paragraph about it. In other classes, you'll give proof that you took the test that we gave you. So whichever one it is.
There's an opportunity on that. So as soon as we get off of here, we're going to post a link for you. It's going to ask you for your name, for your instructors' names. We're going to send that right to your instructor to verify your attendance. You're also going to have an opportunity to give us feedback on how we did and to, ask any questions that you might have.
So thank you guys for attending.
Oh, yeah. And thanks for all the participation in the chat. I appreciate it. I appreciate our moderators, Austin and Leah. And it looks like our dean joined us. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan.
All right. Y'all have a good day. We'll talk to you later.